Hi, I'm Tim from the Heresy Group. Today I want to do a long-awaited video which is about my personal comms setup. It fails for me ever to have been to an event where someone hasn't asked me about this setup of comms, purely because you don't see very many in-ear communication systems that aren't very, very expensive. Now, the Raycal Frontiers were deployed to soldiers all over the world in sort of the mid-2000s. They were used into the sort of 2010, 2015, in that period as well. And then they've been less popular, less successful because, you know, they wouldn't fit people's ears correctly, you know, do block a lot of sound out. So without having the ambient on, it's very difficult for soldiers to hear. Also, this isn't powered off the radio like a lot of, other headset systems that are out there. This is independent on a battery, so it's another thing for someone out on the ground to manage. Moving on from that, they are available all over the place. Now, these are the 1300s. I come across these on eBay. I didn't really understand the difference between the 13, the 12 and the 1012s or the 1010s. Essentially, for Airsoft and for the use that we're using them for, they are all exactly the same. Now, the 1300s do allow dual communications, but it doesn't work when wired up, especially to a Baofeng radio. So essentially, this full setup then, I'll take you from the earpieces all the way back to the radio itself and talk through each piece. So in my ears at the moment is the Raycal earpieces. So they sit in flush, like you can see. Now, I've customized mine. They do normally come with a metal cable that sits over the back of the wire, and it allows you to mold it around your ear. Now, I have quite small ears, and obviously that molding for the length of the cable meant that it would whip round down into the back of my neck if I'd bent it correctly. So what I did is actually removed it. That means that you're left with an earpiece that looks very much like a set of Shure headphones or Bose in-ears. You know, they're very popular to be this sort of shape. As you can see on here, I've got a small earbud, which is a sponge earbud, and when you compress that and force it into the ear canal, it expands into the ear canal and actually opens up and allows that to sit nice and tight in place. I never really have any issues of these being loose or coming out of my ears. I know a few other people have. That's really down to getting the correct earbud size and tip. Now, these are Surefire ones. They come with the Surefire EP7s. You get a in-ear protector, then you get two sets of buds. So one set of buds I've put on this. The in-ear protectors I use separately. I actually sleep in them just so I can get my head down if I'm sleeping during the day or when there's guys moving around. So, you know, essentially buying the EP7s meant I had a set of buds for these, and also a set of buds for my actual, kind of ear protection. Moving down off these then, they go to a cable that goes into the back panel and then down to the very bottom of this little unit here. So you can see this cable at the bottom. Now, you do have to be quite careful with this. It does fit into a very small 7-pin Lemo that sits in the bottom of this unit. Now, this unit itself, I'll put a picture in of it now, so you can see this sat out of the, this pouch on its own. Again, this pouch is custom. I did actually make this myself. It was a Warrior Assault Systems pistol pouch, and I cut the sides out of it so that I can access the buttons on the unit and access the battery pack, and then I've wired that up with some bungee. So you can see it sitting in there. I've got access to the buttons on this side, and then on the rear side, you've got the battery compartment. So moving down to that, that's where all the clever stuff happens. That's where the sound cancelling happens, and that's obviously where the external microphones on these units put your voice, when you've got the PTT held in, back through down to the radio. So from the base of this then, you have the headphones coming down to the top of it, then you have this cable, like so, that will come all the way up over the shoulder to this. This is the Lemo connector. Now, this is where things get a little bit bespoke, and this is why I haven't done a video prior to this on this setup, because the PTT that I had previously was one that I made myself. I had bought myself a 5-pin Lemo connector and wired it up. Now, there was a few people out there that watched this channel that had asked me for the wiring diagram, and I'd passed it over to them, and they'd had a go at it themselves. Some guys had got it to work, some guys hadn't. Now, the good thing now is that you can buy these PTTs handcrafted for you by the guys at JCI Comms. So JCI Comms done this one for me. This is a real steel amped Nexus V2. And then also in here, there is an AUX port on the outside, just underneath this little dust cover. So that means I can put a 3.5mm cable in here. It means that I can have my music on, I can have my phone running through my comms at the same time, which means if I need to make any phone calls in a case of a real emergency, or if I just want to put some tunes on while we're waiting to go out onto the ground, or we're sat about waiting for something to happen, then you can have music on at the same time. So not in all cases is that appropriate, but it is a nice to have. If you do want to get your hands on one of these PTTs, which will enable you to connect it to a Baofeng radio or any radio in that matter, you can have these completely custom built. This particular model is a U94 PTT. It goes to a Baofeng connector, so you can connect it to your Baofeng radio with the AUX port on the top, and for Lemo or for Raycals, it is called the THG PTT. So all we've got to do is speak to the guys at JCI Comms, say I want one of the PTTs that Tim runs from the Heresy group, and he'll know exactly what you're talking about. All you need to then do is go onto eBay and you can pick yourself up a set of Raycals for about £8, which is absolutely incredible for the technology that they offer, the comfort, and also for the fact that you can plug them straight into a PTT you can go and buy off the shelf. It means you've got a full noise cancelling in-ear comm solution, which if you look at the likes of Silinx or Nexus, are way more expensive. So that's definitely something to consider, that these are incredibly cheap for what they are. Now, why go in ear? Why not just get a set of over ears, Peltors, Comtacs, Earmores, whatever? I just don't like them. It really goes down and back to my sniper days of having big over ears on and then trying to get comfy in a prone position down onto the stock. I could never find that it worked for me, so I wanted an in-ear solution. I ran a security type earpiece for many years, and then after having some incidents with some loud bangs, I decided to get some hearing protection like these that do active noise cancelling, and because of that then, it ran me down the route of getting Raycals. So my comm setup essentially is a Baofeng UV5R. I'll put a picture in of that now, and I'll show the essential setup picture. So you've got the radio, and the radio goes out, and then it comes up from the radio to the PTT. From the PTT, you've got the cable that goes from that to the top of the box, and then from the bottom of the box out to the earpieces. So it's very simple. You can see that on the diagram as to how that all works. Again, if you are interested in just buying the full setup, Raycals and the PTT and cable, you just have to provide your own radio. You can do that over at JCI Comms. As you can see on this particular setup, I have got my PTT running quite high. A lot of people have asked me that again before, so to me, why do you run it so high? Why do you prefer it there? What's the preference? Now, as you'll see on a lot of plate carriers, people run their PTTs extremely low. So they are down sort of at your chest height. Whereas with this, it's much higher up towards the shoulder height. Anything down here on this width, I find that if I'm shooting right-handed and I've got the PTT facing inwards, I've got the gun in my shoulder in position, my gun then blocks the PTT on my right side for me to be able to access it comfortably, which is why a lot of people run them on the left side. So if you're shooting right-handed, it means that you can run your hand back, essentially get to your PTT quite easy. Now, the issue with it being lower for me is that if I'm shooting left-handed, which I do quite a lot, it does not block the PTT with it being this high. If the PTT was lower, by the time I'd got my stock into my shoulder and brought the gun across my body, obviously that's going to stop me from being able to access that PTT. So I've put it up much higher. Now, you do see a lot of guys out there running them up on their shoulders for various reasons. It is really what suits you as an individual, but for me and someone that shoots ambidextrously, I guess, across both sides, it does help being up and high on the left side. It just tucks it up and out the way a little bit. It also means that there is less comms coming down the front of the rig. Another key thing with this plate carrier is that behind here you have a quick release buckle, and in the case of an emergency you can squeeze that buckle and pull this top pin out, and it means that the rig will essentially release off of the body. Now, the hardest thing with the Raycal setup, and from other guys that run Raycals, the issue that they have is wiring the unit in and around the body without there being cables everywhere. I'm really lucky with the T3 Tomahawk 2 that there is an internal back panel, and you can see all of the cables on my left side there escaping into the rear panel and then just appearing out of the neck at the back. Again, I like having my neck strap on, so it means that I can just poke these into my ears like so, and it does hold it nice and flush to the back of my head. Again, when I'm running my sling round, my sling is on the low side a lot of the time on my left, so it doesn't hit any of my comms, comes up over my right shoulder, so there's nothing being blocked, so it's not going to inhibit any movement when I've got my sling on. So that's pretty much for my comms setup. Yes, it is going to be very bespoke as to what plate carrier you've got. If you run a Baofeng, if you run a TRI, if you run any of the other larger 152 style radios, where you run your radio, if you run your radio on your front, if you've got any of the drop forward pouches that I know Richie really likes. Running this out is going to be very much individual as to your setup and your specification. But if you do want to run a very, very good, reliable set of in-ear noise cancelling communication headset, then Raycals is a very, very good option. Again, they're super cheap. One thing that you could do that I would heavily recommend is go to JCI Comms and get a whole setup from him. If you've got a radio already, he can do the end connector to fit any radio that's on the market. So if you've got real steel radio, if you've got a repro radio, if you're using a Baofeng, again, if you're using any radio that's out there on the market, he can just put a different pin and plug on the end, as long as it's obviously compatible with Raycals, which most radios out there on the market should be. So that's a brief overview of my comms setup. I hope I've covered everything in my mind. I feel like I have. If I haven't, please put your comments and your questions in the box below. Really does help us and help other people in the community when you do put those questions in, especially if it's something that you feel like I've missed and that people are going to want to know. Please, again, make sure you put a comment in the box below. You never know, you might be helping someone else out. So I really appreciate that. If there's more videos that you want to see on my particular setup, how I run things, whether it is in regards of admin, whether it's my mag setup, so on and so forth, please put a comment in the box below. If there's something particular you want to see, I will make sure that a video gets put on the channel about it. We're doing a lot on social media at the moment. You can follow me over on Instagram, Tim_the Heresy Group. Follow Richie as well, Richie_the Heresy Group. We do a lot on Facebook. It's facebook.com/the Heresy Group. We're very, very easy to find. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope that it's covered off all of the information about my comms setup that you guys wanted to know about. If you do have any questions, again, put them in the box below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all soon.